Okay, I've started to cook my curry lamb chops, but I've got a problem. I've run out of curry powder, and I can't be bothered to go to the store, not when I've got the ingredients here at home to make my own curry powder. So I'm going to take you through the process I use to make my own curry powder. Okay, curry powder. Now, what is curry powder all about? Well, it's all about spices. And here are a load of spices I use regularly. The majority of your curry powder, of all curry powders, are made, that's my actual made up curry powder, are made from a couple of things. They're made mostly from coriander, into which a similar, a slightly less amount of cumin is added. Now that's the base of most curry powders. The other things that can go into curry powders are fennel seeds. Turmeric is nearly always in curry powder. That's the yellow thing that you'll see in it. And then there are very highly aromatic spices like cloves, cinnamon, or its slightly rougher cousin cassia. The difference between cassia and cinnamon, right, cinnamon is the inner bark of the cinnamon tree, and cassia is just an outer bark of it. It's a more pronounced, and it's generally more often used whole, whereas cinnamon is generally ground. These are beautiful cinnamon quills. I'll take one out and show you. These are lovely. These come from Sri Lanka. These are beautiful cinnamon quills. And cassia, as you see, it's more of a thick bark. So in a lot of cases where you're presented with so-called cinnamon, what you're actually getting is cassia. So do be careful of it. However, it is cinnamon. There's no doubt about it. The smell is the same. It's just not quite as delicate. Yeah. Another very aromatic one is cardamom. Sometimes you see it as a little lemony looking seed. I buy the seeds, the whole seeds. Now the reason I buy whole spices is they just last a lot longer than ground spices. So always, if you can, obtain the whole spices. And another one here is Fenugreek Seeds, which looks like a little bean. Let me give you a closer up on that there. Is that focusing? Look like little tiny beans. But you get your nose in that and they smell a little bit like asafoetida, a little bit like hing, which is a sort of a sticky resin that's used in some Indian cookery. So we've got aromatic spices, highly aromatic spices. All spices are aromatic, and there's one I haven't mentioned, and it's my new best mate, and I'm calling it my new best mate because it's a wonderful spice, and it's known as ajwain seeds. Ajwain seeds. If you smell it, it smells a little of carrots, and the reason it does is because they're the seeds of a member of the carrot and parsnip family, so a vegetable. So that's why, and I'm starting to use it a little more in my cookery these days, and it's particularly good when cooking things like carrots and other tap roots. So here we go. Right. The next thing you'll need is a spice grinder, which I use an old coffee mill. And I don't make a lot of it at once, because the thing is with curry powder is by the time it smells like curry, like the curry you're familiar with, it's already too old. So it's a bit long in the tooth by the time it gets to that familiar curry smell. Freshly ground curry powder, on the other hand, is amazing. It is amazing. So I like to cook, I like to prepare maybe just a little bit more than I need for that particular meal. And with that in mind, we'll just get straight on with it, shall we? Just get a spoon. There are a couple of other spices I've just noticed that can be used. One that gets used a lot in West Indian Caribbean cooking is a spice called Allspice, and it's like a big dried berry, and it's called Allspice because it really does. It tastes like about 4 or 5 other spices at once. And if you ever had the wonderful jerk chicken, which is one of the signature dishes of Jamaica, you'll have tasted Allspice. It is a fabulous taste. If I'm preparing a curry for anything West Indian, you can guarantee some of that is going into it. Alright, so we'll start with the ones I'm going to use the most of, and that is coriander. So I'm going to cook this amount of lamb chops, so I'm going to need about 1, 2, 3, 4 teaspoons of them. So that's 4 teaspoons of coriander seeds. And I'm going to need, going on to cumin, I'm going to need a couple of teaspoons of them. And what I do with cumin when I get it is I put it in a dry pan and toast it in a dry pan over a hot flame, over a hot stove, and toast it until it goes 1 shade darker than it was raw. There are several tastes for every single spice, and one, you've got a combination of fried, raw spice, raw ground spice, raw whole spice, toasted ground, toasted whole. Yeah, you with me? Following me? So they're all combinations, and they all bring out different characteristics, and they bring out the flavours of it. So I'm now going to add 2 teaspoons of cumin seeds. So that's 4 to 2. Now that brings up the bulk of everything that's in there. Everything else that goes in less quantities. So I'm going to put in, because it's my new best mate, I'm putting in a teaspoon of these. It's not an exact science. You do it your own way. You get used to the flavours you like, and then you do it that way. While I'm at it, I think I'm going to be a bit cheeky and put some of this cumin on top of my lamb chops, because they're going to be curried later on. So stay tuned, and the recipe for my lamb chops will appear below or on my channel. Another thing I put in there is some turmeric. Turmeric has wonderful properties. It's a root, a tropical root that grows similar to ginger, in the same family as ginger, ginseng, 1 or 2 other roots that are used in Thai cookery, galangal for instance, and all of them seem to have amazing properties. Turmeric is particularly good for your digestion, and it's particularly good as an antidepressant as well, so it is really, really good, excellent qualities. So into this one I'm going to put a teaspoon and a bit into there. I don't want it too yellow, I just want it there, and I want the properties of it. Another nice one with lamb is fennel, which is slightly aniseed. If I was cooking chicken, I would probably use a bit more of this, but seeing as it's for lamb, I'm just going to use half a teaspoon of fennel seeds. I'm going to use, just for a bit of heat, I'm going to use a teaspoon of chili flakes, red chili flakes. Teaspoon of chili flakes. I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom seeds. 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom seeds. I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds. And I'm going to use, I'm not going to use the cassia for this because I'm in a cinnamon mood, so let's see what we're going to use. I'm going to take the bits out the bottom of there, and I'm just going to break up, what's that? It's about half a teaspoon of cinnamon, which is going to be ground up. And I'm not going overboard on cloves, but because it's lamb, it can take. So I'm putting 3 cloves in there. Not a lot, you see. So that's all I'm putting into this one. You can vary the amounts, but the base coriander and cumin which is dhania and jeera, are the Hindi names for them. They need to make up the bulk of the curry powder if you're making a curry powder. Most Indian people, by the way, don't use a curry powder per se. They will use each ground spice separately. I find, because I'm not cooking curry every day, that to cook that way is uneconomic for me, and I don't like keeping ground spices around the house. I'd rather just grind it per meal. And because I love Caribbean food, I'm going to put 4 allspice berries in it as well, because I can, and because I can and I will. And then the next thing I'm going to do is make a hell of a lot of noise, because I'm going to grind that all up like fine, like coffee powder. So I'll get back to you in a minute. So here it is, it's ground to a fine powder. I spared you the noise of that, but it's straightforward. You just grind everything up, and also check the bottom of your grinder just to make sure all the bits have been ground up. And there you go. There's one thing that you'll only know if you do this yourself, and that is how wonderful this smells. It is just oh, especially with my new best mate ajwain inside it. It's fabulous. I love that smell. Do I sound enthusiastic? That is absolutely wonderful. Okay, so boys and girls, that's your curry powder.